Well, good day and welcome to our next segment here of our instructional series, tying with hair. I like using a lot of the natural materials. Fly tying originated, just tying with fur and feathers, and create some beautiful flies, still used today and very extensively. A lot of new synthetics, new materials, all kinds of products coming out all the time, but there's just a lot of things cannot be done without hair. Tying with hair can be a little bit of a challenge. I know when you're starting, it's always can be a mess. Probably a lot of the times you're struggling with it is maybe you're using the wrong type of hair and the wrong application. So we'll try to show you, we'll go over, deep dive into that a little more about selecting your hair, the proper hair for and where you use it, and how to tie it on the hook. So we're going to be looking at some of the tools, the techniques, and where you would use these different types of hair in applications for not only dry flies, but wet fly streamers and so forth, dubbing and hackles and many uses for it. So hopefully this will kind of open the doors for you, help you get through the panic of working with different types of hair. Like I said, it can be kind of an aggravating little journey there when you start tying, or even intermediate tyers. I know all the way through we keep learning different applications and all the different types of hair. It really is a pretty endless topic. So I'll put it all into chapters for you on our playlist, so you can go back and watch this video here. You'll see the chapters are listed in the description below, and hope this will help a lot of you viewers out. I know that we've had some people asking a little more about it, so here we go. And we appreciate all your comments and suggestions. So make sure you, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you do, and we'd like you to pass it on to your buddies. Hopefully we can grow our channel even a little bit more. We're going to be doing a lot more instructional series with you all the time. I'll try to keep updating you with different fly fishing and fly tying tips. So thanks a lot. Let's get on to tying with hair. Well, let's start with some of the tools we need for tying hair and some of the purposes. The most important part of tying hair is using good thread. One of my favorites is a classic, like a wax thread here, a uni thread, or here's a Semperfli, just a standard wet or tan color. It blends in with most of my deer hair. Strong, and it's not slippery. So that's one of my favorites for sure. Now these other flat threads have their purpose as well. Here's a Danville 210 denier flat thread. I use that a lot on streamers and also on spinning hair where you don't want to cut into the hair. Semperfli is also Dano Silks. Here you go with 6/0, 3/0, 1/0, and also Unicord and Mylar. I use that for years as well, which is basically the same type of material. Very strong. You can put a lot of pressure on the flies. With that, they lay down nice and flat and they don't cut your hair. So, and white is not a problem if you want to color them up. Get marker pens and you can do that, unless you want to buy all the different colors you want to use. But you don't see the hair in most, or the threads and colors in most cases anyways. Okay, now my work scissors, I tie with these little anvils, these offsets in my hand all the time. They're just, I can't tie without them. I'm so used to it because you're always cutting and trimming. Hair seems to be the same thing. You're always trimming and so forth. Now, I've got these three sets here. These are Dr. Slicks. These are serrated blades, and I've had these for years, and I've never had to replace them, but I only use these on hair. I don't, and here's a straight blade. There's a curved blade, and these little micros for little small flies. And I save them just for deer, just for any hair I'm doing, because hair you need good sharp scissors, and you don't want to compromise that at all. Here's a bone comb for combing out the underfur so you can get a good stack on your hair and doesn't create any static. So it's made out of bone. It's a little more money than a regular comb, but you'll really appreciate that. You'll never break it. Talk about stackers. There is a few different kinds. You want a good heavy stacker. He's got a little bit of weight to him. Gives you a little felt or whatever in the bottom to stop some of the noise. Now you want to make sure that the bottoms are cleaned out. You see that one's got a lot of junk in there. That would not stack properly. So before you start using the stackers, make sure they're cleaned out. And there's different size ones. That's the Magnum size, of course, the regular size, and here's a little guy for smaller little. So you can use those three sizes if you like. Now the hair packers come in sizes as well. You're going to see and they fit over. You push that on to pack the hair nice and tight. We'll show you how to operate these. There's not much to it, but it'll save you poking your finger through the hook when you're pushing them on there. So these are good handy little tools as well. And you can also use half hitch tools to finish your flies, to do a half hitch for a whip finish if you want, so you're not binding down any hair. That pushes it back and you can whip finish. We'll use that. And here's a real little guy for small ones, small flies. And you may want to use some dubbing spinners here for if you're going to do collars and that with different types of hair. You definitely want to use that. These clips come in handy where you can get the tips lined up of your hair and then get them in there. These are CDC clips, but they work for hair as well. So that's pretty much the gist of the tools, and let's get some hooks in the vise here. I'm going to work with different types of hair and show you some techniques. Well, let's look at some types of hair here. That'll kind of narrow it down a little bit for you, and then we'll start tying some different patterns. Here is some moose body hair. This makes really good stiff tailing fibers for dry flies. Pretty much all I'd use that for. There's moose mane that's got different colorations, and you can use that just to wrap nice bodies like you would with peacock herl or whatever, and you can do it with moose mane. There's a lot of patterns called for that. Now if you're spinning hair and you want a really nice dense body, an alternative from deer hair would be a caribou or here's antelope. There's some sheep and caribou. That really packs super tight. So we're going to tie with that, make some nice thick bodies. Here's some bear for wings. Nice bear hair. Here's some more of that. Here's some really nice, look at that patch of moose body hair for tailing fibers. Those are perfect. They really float nice. Here's some nice soft hair that will pack. See, it's a little bit coarse, so that you want something that's coarse when you're flaring. And you want, here's a calf body hair, which is very fine, for example, which is more for wings, okay, so because it doesn't flare. Here's some nice little tips on this coastal type deer hair. Look at these nice little tips. We can get that in a stacker. They look really good for small dry flies. More moose body mane. Now we'll get into the deer hair. Now when you talk about deer and elk hair, there is just no end to that subject either. Here's some natural elk. Elk doesn't flare as much as deer. It's a little stiffer, so it's really good for wings too. And there's nice natural elk. Here's some deer hair that's more of a coastal type deer hair, kind of roe deer they'd call that probably in Europe. Very fine hair, so it doesn't flare too much. There's times when you want it to flare for certain applications. And so here's another patch. Now this is good long hair for many purposes. You're going to need length. Still got pretty fine hair. It's not going to flare a lot. So it's going to be easy to handle for many applications. And here's some elk again. You can see it does have lots of buoyancy and doesn't flare as much as deer. It's more of that nice fine deer, just no end to it. And now we're getting this little more coarse. So that would be a nice hair to flare, but it's an elk, so it's not going to flare as much as deer. See how coarse it is? Very stiff. Here's a super soft, nice tips on this little deer hair. I'm kind of hurting for hair. I always, when I go into fly shops, first place I go is a look in the wall for hair, because all these hairs are different. They all have different purposes. Here's just a dyed dun colored. Another good little one for wings. Nice tips. Get it in all kinds of colorations. And this is a coastal deer, Rocky Mountain dubbing. I used to bring this into my shop. It was really good hair. So good quality hairs are super important. Okay. Now when we want to flare a lot of hair, we want to use really coarse. Now we're doing like bass bugs and stuff like that. Now here's deer belly hair. And this really flares because it's comes right off the belly, and it's really coarse and it really flares nice. I'll show you how to run that. This will flare as well, but it's not as coarse, so it's going to be for smaller flies. So all this deer belly here comes in different colorations. There's some coarser hair here. This would be good for wings. It's an elk. So once you get working with it, you'll understand a little more how it behaves. Bleached elk hair, really nice for wings. Dyed deer hair. This is really good materials. All kinds of colors. You can match anything you want for dry flies. Then we'll just go on here, I got them out, here's some calf tail, which is just used for wings. And it does flare, and squirrel hair, slippery. I'll show you how to tie that in and work that. But it's used for wings on a lot of flies too. Okay, let's get the device and tie a few up, show you some different methods. Okay, let's look at some of the basics of tying with deer hair. This is going to be a bit of a challenge, and I know it's very frustrating for a lot of tyers. I like to put a thread base down. Otherwise, sometimes you want it to spin very easily around the shank, and sometimes you don't. So you'll see that maybe someplace I will do it, and some I'll skip it. This is my classic wax 6/0 thread, my tan. That's my go-to. Now I'll get some deer hair. This is some regular kind of deer hair right here. We've got a generous chunk of that. Grab it by the tips. Brush that under fur out. Clean that all up. And it must be put into the stacker with the tips. Hammered down nice and tight. And your tip should be lined up coming out of there. Now, if I wanted to lay it on top is one thing. What I want to do here basically is I want to show you how we can flare it and how it's going to handle just with thread tension. So I'm going to get a loose turn here where I want, see, a couple loose turns, just kind of gather it up. And then when I pull it, it wants to follow that thread pressure. And you just keep winding forward, and it just keeps grabbing your tips. You see how it's wanting to take these tips forward? I'm getting it bound down all the way along where I had that under, that body thread on the body, on the shank of the hook. Let's tie that back. So that, it just flares around with the pressure basically. Okay, now we'll just trim this off just for giggles, and so kind of a rough way, but it's basically going to be tension. That's really the key when you're handling hair. The more you pull it, the more it'll want to flare, and the thicker the hair, the more it'll want to flare as well. Okay, so let's just get another hook in the vise here. And we'll just keep doing similar steps, but I want to just show you the same hair, the same thread. Got our thread base down again. Now I'd want this for, say, a wing. Clean it out again. Put my stacker. Now deer hair is going to flare more than elk, so I would rather use elk for the wing so it doesn't flare as much. Take the tail to the end of the hook. I lay it down on the shank, got the tips lined up nice. I just pinch my thumb and my finger on each side of the hair, and I get a good loose turn, a little tighter, and when I pull, I'm pulling up. The thing I forgot to tell you about these tools, when you're using bobbins, make sure you get ceramic tip bobbins, because you want to use a lot of pressure, and you don't want the hair or your thread to flare on your brake. That'll be something I'd really encourage anyone, even if you're on a little bit of a budget, make sure you get some get bobbin ceramic tip. So now this hair remained on the top because I left all my pressure going straight up. I'll just tie this back. Give it a haircut. But that would be a way to keep your wing on top. Now we'll just take I'm going to flare one this time. I'm going to make a body. Goes my shank. So it just stops everything from sliding around on you. Get a nice hair packer, get a smaller one. Okay, now I'll grab this hair here as well. Nice big chunk. We're gonna make a deer hair body, trim body. Now, I'm not using the tips. I'm just gonna hold it by the tip, so I don't need to stack it. But you don't want too big a clump. This is a really big clump. I'm going to show you what's going to happen here. It probably won't want to behave as well as I want it to. Cut it off. Got a little chunk, and it might not, see, it won't bite on the shank. Now it's starting to want to, but you got to really be careful with that. So you get your thread coming through the hair and binding it down so it doesn't slip. And you'll take a packer in here and you'll just keep pushing it back. Grab another chunk. I'm just doing this with deer hair. The belly hair is actually the best. I'm going to take a couple turns, cut those tips off again, and then pull it around. And there you go to pack your hair. You get your body and you trim it to shape. Okay, so let's just give you the basics. Say we're doing a stimulator. I'll be putting a thread base down. Our shank is not slippery. Come around right to the point of the barb back here. That's the point of the hook. This is the point of the barb at the back. Then we'll just bring in some, this is going to be elk because it doesn't flare as much. A little piece of that. Very little bit under for an elk. We can get that out with your hand a lot of times. Put that into our stacker. Those tips lined up nice. And nice short little tail, and I'll pinch it on either side. Get a loose turn or two, just the first few. Then we'll come down, wrap these butts forward. First turns are kind of loose, so that's really, I don't bind them down too much beginning with. And then when I come back, I'm going to tighten them right up. It won't slip around the shank. It's nice. You got a nice underbody there, nice and level. Take a turn in around behind them is a good idea. And if you have deer hair, if you don't have elk and you have deer hair and it's flaring on you, I'll do that with deer just to show you, but it'll flare when you put the pressure on it. So the elk, it doesn't. Okay. I'll just throw a half inch in here. And I'll just bring in some dubbing here. We won't put the hackles and all that, finish the fly. I'll just kind of give you an idea what we're doing. Bring in our body. Okay. Pretty typical for a stimulator. Now we want a wing again, so I'm gonna get another little patch, grab it by the tips, clean that under fur out. You can use your bone comb if you want, but get it nice and clean. Put those tips in the stacker. One thing I mentioned about tools, it's probably one of the most important tools you can get is a vacuum cleaner. Because this hair and all kinds of fly tying materials, marabou and everything is going to get all over their house, and you're going to not be very good terms with your wife. Okay, now with these tips of the wing will come to the tips of the tail, and I want it to stay on top of the shank. So I've got about the right amount of hair there. So I pinch it on both sides, a nice soft turn, a little tighter, and then now I'm really putting the heat on it, and it's staying right up top. And we'll just cut those butts off at an angle. And the reason you cut them off at an angle is when you wrap forward, it also holds the hair in, and then you get a nice thinner tie-in spot there for your throw racks. And you just clean this little bit of hair up. That'll keep the hair on top where it belongs. Okay. Now I want to get a good base going here. We wrap this down nice and snug in the front. Okay, then we'll come in with deer hair. Some nice even tips on it, nice and fine. Grab our hair stacker. So I'll clip off a generous piece of that, grab it by the tips. Grab my bone comb here. Gets rid of all the under fur. That's what stacks. Clean that all up. Put that in my stacker. Gotta give that a good tapping on the hard table there so we get the tips lined up good. See, there was some junk in the bottom there. I didn't check my stacker before I went to do that, so that's another. Make sure you clean that bottom of that stacker out. Now we'll bring in our deer hair again. So those are little tips I'm showing you that you're going to run across. A lot of you know this, but some of you might not. So then they come out nice and even. You can see the little black tips are just perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it in this hand here. Got quite a clump. Bring in an extra scissor. I'm going to cut it off with the other hand here, right? Cut these butts off nice and even. Now I'll bring them in from the side, and I'm coming at a 90 degree, and I'm just gathering up the butts with my thread, just barely getting the butts tied in. I'm taking 3 turns, and then they should spin and catch. And that's, you just got the butts tied down. You see the barely showing in there. Get some good wraps on this. Now I'll come into the rear here of the head. My hopper, I've got quite a bit of space there. And you get your little bullet head tools. There's a set of 3, I think, in a package. It's about the medium size. And that just fits right over the front of your fly. The eye. Gets a nice even amount of pressure on there. And just wrap it down. And that builds you a nice bullet head. See any of the odd fibers, you'll see the odd one that'll not want to behave, so you just trim that out. Go on the bottom, I trim them out. There's your deer head or bullet head hopper right there. Orange thread underneath that. Now here we have some red fox squirrel. Now when we're putting wings on here, these hair wings, they get slippery, so I want to make sure I cut that at a real steep angle. And when I'm tying that on, I'm just getting a few fibers at a time. I roll that up as we go up and just keep catching in a little by little as we go forward. And that'll bind them hairs in really nice without adding a bunch of glue and goop in there. And that'll, the elk hair Caddis wouldn't be complete without elk hair, would it? So I got some elk hair here. It doesn't flare as much as deer hair. You can use deer hair, but it does flare more. And then I'll hold the tips, pull the junk out of the bottom, throw the hair into my stacker, make sure the stacker's clean. Sometimes you get stuff in there, you won't stack so good. Make sure it's clean. Tap it on a good hard surface. The tip should be nice and black, even. Come off the side like so. Not certain if they look right. Go again. You don't have your hair cleaned out, it won't stack properly. See, there was one loose one in there, I didn't see it. And that'll kind of mess things up a little bit. A couple of not quite so long, pull a couple little long, shorter ones off. And this tips look pretty good. We're coming right to the bend of the hook. I'm going to pinch it on each side. Remember when I said pinch? We're going to get a loose turn, pull it up, another turn, pull it up. Whatever your thread tension, if you pull it up, the hair will stay on top. If I pull it down, it'll want to turn. And then we'll just pull this back. Get a few turns in front of the butts. Leave those long butts on for now. So if I have this white thread, I can make a brown thread out of it with a marker pen. Really quick and easy. You can apply all the colors if you don't want to. Now we'll come in here with the Mattarelli style whip finish. I'll just get a little close to my business here. This can be confusing for sometimes. There's the hook on the end here. We're going to push that against the thread. Come around the back of the frame where my thumb is. And then here we go over top. As you can see, there's a 4. You see it right there, a 4. Now I'll get these other hairs out of the way, and then we can just start wrapping that in. That's a really good whip finish tool. Probably the most popular one. I would suggest get one of those. You're going to use it all the time. Get a hold of those butts. Put a nice little haircut. And you have the elk hair Caddis. That's great. It's one of these flies. It takes a little bit of time to kind of get the hang of it. You got to have everything going good for you. Sometimes this hair gets a little bit aggravating proposition, but okay, we'll start our 8/0 thread on the hook here. Dress our shank. We'll make sure this slippery hair don't move around. I'll come up to 1/3 of the way back. So we'll bring in our calf body hair. And you cut that as close as you can to the skin. It's always better to work a little more than, we'll probably take a little of that away, but I get that bottom stuff out, that junk out of the bottom, so it stacks. Put it in our hair stacker. Check your hair stacker, there's nothing left in there. Sometimes you leave a little something behind and it affects your hair stacker working right. So we got the tips coming out nice and even. I'm just going to pinch that on the side. My finger and my thumb on each side of the shank here, and I'm going to take a couple softer turns and I start giving a little more pressure. Now I'm going to come down quite an angle here, right these butts. And then we'll wrap them butts down. Before I do anything else, you want to wrap these butts down because that'll help hold that hair in place. And use some 8/0 thread. You can use smaller thread, but I like to put some heat on this because you're working with hair, you need some pressure. Okay, and then we'll just bring our hair back and get some turns ahead of it to stand it up. There we go. So now we'll divide our wings in half, come front and behind, about 3 times. I'll go on the other side now underneath. I'll bring my thread up from the back to the front on this side 3 times. Now that has divided our wings. Take a few more good turns in there. Now we'll take the far wing. I want to get my thread in tight to it, and I'll bring my thread right at the base of that wing. Stand it up. Get it around, and then we'll come in around the base of this near wing. And we'll stand it up. Oop. Sometimes when you're working with that, see, it wants to slip. I'm going to fix that up in a minute. These wings have a mind of their own. So just set them there with your fingers. That's good. Just pull that thread back. It's just slipping on the thread a little bit. And I'll come into the tying point. Excuse me. Excuse me, for the tail. Grab a little pinch of that calf hair again. We'll get that in the stacker once more. Comes out nice and straight. There again, we got more than we need, so you can take away a little bit. You can always take away on hair, but you can't add. Take a good turn. Come in behind the tail. Underneath that just locks it on right on to the shank. Really nice. I want to wrap these butts down nice. Get this blackened up with a thread. There we go. This wing here wants to do its own thing. We're going to show you in a second how I'm going to fix all that up. Make it really nice and durable. Merger, midge merger. Crown of midge popping off and then choke breaking the surface. You want to make sure you got a merger fly on. I'm going to use some light mono tying thread on there, nice and clear. Bring in some moose mane for the body. A couple nice colorations there. We want to make sure we get the light colored one. Grab a dark hair here somewhere. Give us a nice contrast. I'll leave these 2 colored hairs together. I want to get the ends of them this way. I want to use a thicker hair down the bottom. Cut them off about a third of the way off there. Just tie them on the top of the shank. Your thread. Well around the corner. Take our thread up. Now we'll just get these. Make sure these hairs stay together. They can run right side by side. So what we want to do there is make sure, just give them a little twist here. Get that first turn or so together. Now look at them. Doing what we want. Get some nice segmentation there. Looks like the truck of the chronomid. Shaking out of that in the water. Bring in some slow res. Coat that up just to make it strong. You can use other quill bodies if you have those, you can do that. That moose mane's been around a long time. Works great. I still use it. Put that on. Now I'll come in with some red rabbit for the tail. We're going to do this more of a Western style wet fly. Not using hackle feathers, we're going to be using just rabbit. So it makes a nice tail. That actually swims very, very well. The body, instead of peacock herl, I'm going to use some peacock green rainbow chenille. This is just a medium size. Nice little chenille. It's nice and bright. And then we'll just wrap that body forward. It's a nice color. There we go. Now I'll get some of our wire in for the collar. I'm going to be using some dubbing brush wire. This is stainless steel wire in small. Very fine wire. I use it for dubbing brushes all the time. I'll just catch some right at the head here. Make sure you fold it back so it doesn't pull out. Throw a half inch in here. Now if you don't have this style of ice, you can just use a dubbing loop. I'm just going to do mine. I always do mine on the wire. It just sticks out the hair a little bit further. And I want to show you something else here. I'm going to bring this hide up here for example. I want to show you something on the table. Found this beautiful rabbit pelt the other day, and we want to make sure we get the tips lined up nice and even, so it's like a grizzly hackle, if you will. So I'm going to go down just a little bit with the camera, and we're going to show you a little trick here. Get yourself a ruler, just a straight edge. And when you come against the hair, you'll see how it wants to line that fibers up. And you can just take a pinch straight across there, and it'll line them up really nice and neat for you, okay? So that'll get those tips all lined up, because we don't want to just come in there haphazard. Layer. See that nice markings on there? I just love that hair. As soon as I seen that pelt, I knew I had a lot of good flies coming off that pelt, because I just like speckled appearance. I like the way rabbit swims. So now I'm just going to cut it to the length I want for my hackle. For hair hackling. It's not always feathers. You can do lots with hair, and I like hair because it breathes and it moves and has a speckled appearance. It really looks alive. So it's just going to come, the butts are just over top of the thread. And if you're doing dubbing loops, also a good idea, just get some dubbing wax, put on one side of your thread or your wire, and that'll hold your hair into place when you make your next step here. It'll just kind of hold everything there. It won't slip out, because rabbit gets pretty slippery. A lot of hair does. So instead of just a grizzly hackle, we're going to use rabbit. So I come here at the back where the collar is. Now I'm just going to kind of fold that on. And tie it off. And we'll get our thread on here. We'll get a head on. Nice little head. Get a whip thread, dress the shank. Now I've taken this as a Magnum rabbit strip, all variant, and I've laid that, pierced the skin. I'm going to tie that underneath the pattern. I want the strip on the top side. This is going to be riding hook side up. It doesn't snag. Just going to trim the tail at a V. There we go. Now here I'm using, this is angel hair from larvae lace. Just going to lay some of that in here over the top to kind of cover that hide on the rabbit. Once that's wet, it looks really nice when it's wet. Give a little glint down there. Now, if the body is pretty easy, it's going to be some dyed UV polar chenille. I'll just lash some on here. This flies really fish as well. It's really easy to tie. Like I say, you guys can pound these out pretty quick. If you're big trophy trout hunters and big streamer guys, you like this one, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy streamer fishing. That's one of my favorites. It's so rewarding because you know what, you're going to be tying on to some good fish. Best fish in the system with it. No matter if it lakes or rivers, wherever you go. And this is a lake, river pattern for sure, but you can fish that for bass and lakes too. So just what I'm doing here, just back up, is running the polar chenille right alongside the leather on the rabbit. So it gives it that nice wet look. Those sculpin are slimy looking little rascals, or big rascals, are a pretty good chunk of food. Now we just keep coming forward here, preening everything back. And that is a nice way of doing that. I'll just cut the leather a little bit longer because I want to make sure I get some really good turns down here we have to tie off.
Thanks for watching Brent's fly fishing instructional series. He can be found on Brent's YouTube channel and Sport Fishing on the Fly.